The King's Daughter sees Pierce Brosnan as the King of France and Kaya Scodelario as his daughter, who can talk to mermaids. Intriguing for sure, but does that mean that this movie is worth a watch? I was lucky enough to see this film early, and I'm going to give you my quick thoughts right now. Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Brandon, aka The Brando Critic, and I want to say thank you so much for clicking on this video and being here today. I really do appreciate it. I'm sending you a ton of positive vibes your way. Today I'm going to give you my honest, no BS, non-spoiler review for The King's Daughter and let you know if it's worth a watch. If you want to support this channel, then hit like and subscribe, and if you really want to support the channel, then go follow me on Patreon. And don't forget about my partners at Movie Scene Canada as well. Their link will be down below in the description. So, we have The King's Daughter from director Sean McNamara, and you know him from such films as Soul Surfer and Raise Your Voice, The Miracle Season, and the live-action Bratz movie. So, as you can tell, we're in pretty good hands here. And it stars Pierce Brosnan, Kaya Scodelario, William Hurt, Bing Bing Fan, and Benjamin Walker. And the movie is about Marie Joseph, the King's daughter, who is hidden away because of an illegitimate birth. However, the King of France wants immortality, don't we all? And the key to achieving that might have something to do with his daughter and the life force of a mermaid. So, is this movie worth a watch? No. This movie is bad, but I will be honest, I did enjoy watching this movie because I was laughing quite a few times at the screen. So I enjoyed my time with it, but for all the wrong reasons. This is not a good movie whatsoever, and it could have been. This is where it gets disappointing. I really think that this movie, in the hands of another director, could have been quite enjoyable. Not amazing, not great, but enjoyable. For the right reasons, that is. Like, you go down that list, you have the fairy tale-like story, the Once Upon a Time, the narration by Julie Andrews, and of course, as soon as you hear Julie Andrews, you're in a good spot. You have a king that wants immortality, you have a daughter that's locked away, but she has some magical powers, and there's mystical mermaids, and there's a love triangle, right? Like, she's supposed to marry the Duke, but she wants to marry the sailor. Like, I'm down for all of that, and honestly, I think the cast in this movie is, you know, for the most part, pretty good. Sure, there's no big A-list names, like Pierce Brosnan is not James Bond anymore, you know, William Hurt is the secondary character in a lot of movies, and I will admit that his performance in here is a little spotty. Kaya Scodelario is a perfect lead for this movie, and she can do a great job, and I feel like the cast, you know, really brings their all with the material that's given to them, but the execution just destroys this movie. And let's start off with the biggest problem. The editing and the pacing. Those two issues alone completely derail the movie, where I can't even recommend it. For the first 20 minutes of the movie especially, and for the most part, the entire movie, scenes happen so quickly. I feel like shots are not as long as they need to be for us to really understand why these scenes are in the movie. What information do we need to get from these scenes? And there's no breathing room. For example, the King of France, Pierce Brosnan's character, walks down to the sailor and says, you know what, you need to get this life force from this mermaid, or else a jail cell will look like paradise to you. You know what, that's a great line, because you understand, yes, he really means business. He really wants this life force, and he's willing to put people in prison if they fail him. However, he says that line, a jail cell will look like a paradise. Cut, next scene. It's like, what's going on, people? Filmmaking 101, you need to let that line linger for a bit. Show the character who he's talking to and show their emotion, show their reaction, and really let that line sink in. But no, we gotta go on to the next scene. And because of that editing and that pacing, it's hard to understand who our characters are, what they want, where are they, what's going on, who's doing what. I'm lost. Narration can only go so far because it's only in like the first 5 minutes of the movie, and Julie Andrews does a pretty good job of just establishing the groundwork. But the whole fact that the king's daughter is now being invited to the castle and what immortality means to the king, I don't know, guys. I feel like I missed so much information because the scenes are just going, and I don't want to rewind the movie. If I feel the need to rewind something because I didn't understand something, then the movie is clearly not doing its job. And also, it doesn't help that the cinematography is not up to snuff, because sure, what they are shooting looks beautiful. Versailles looks fantastic, it looks gorgeous. However, most scenes, they cannot keep the camera still. And I'm fine with dolly zooms, I'm fine with, you know, moving the camera once in a while to actually make it look cinematic, but when every shot needs to do this like elaborate move when nothing is happening, it's disorienting, because one, you can't focus on what's happening on screen, and the scenes are so quick that you don't understand who's doing what, who needs what, any of that stuff. That's vitally important to know what's happening in a movie. And on top of that, this movie is extremely overly saturated, and trust me, I like bright colors as much as the next person, but keep that to Instagram. Having that in a movie like this, it makes it look very cheap, very hallmarky, and yes, the CGI as well is not really up to snuff, but I will get into a minor spoiler later on in the video about the CGI where I feel like they did a really good job with it, but it comes a little too late. And honestly, guys, there are some shots in this movie where I swear they just ripped it straight from YouTube. So much so that they even have white lines for a brief moment at the top and bottom of the screen. The aspect ratio doesn't even fit. I'm like, oh God, this movie just looks cheap. And it's nothing to do with the budget. You can tell when someone gets a shot from YouTube and puts it into a feature film. And on top of that, the soundtrack. There are some moments where the score is quite beautiful, especially with the mermaid singing. But then you get that overly cheap Disney parade light type songs. It's just awful, especially in a movie like this where they're modern songs. In a movie like this, 1600s France. It's bafflingly terrible. So it's the execution of that story that really derails the movie, because I think there's a good story here, and it's a shame because I think in the hands of a more talented filmmaker and a couple of other rewrites, I think you could have a movie that is enjoyable for the whole family. The general storyline I do think works about the king and the daughter and the mermaid. I'm fine with all of that. Kaya Scodelario and Pierce Brosnan actually have chemistry together, and some of their more emotional scenes I do think can work if the scenes were able to breathe, of course. And there's a love triangle between her and two men, and when the two men are sparring with each other, I'm actually like, oh, damn, like I actually like it. And the sailor's played by Benjamin Walker, who I swear to God is like Luke Evans, Karl Urban, Orlando Bloom, a young Liam Neeson, and Pedro Pascal all put into a blender. It's really, really bizarre. So you can tell that he's kind of like the light version of all those actors in a movie like this, but he does a good job, and his chemistry with Kaya Scodelario is actually pretty good. I actually bought their romance and I bought their love story. And some of the music, again, like I just said, the soundtrack for the most part is pretty awful. But when the mermaid is singing and then Marie Joseph writes that into her own music and plays it on her cello, it's actually quite beautiful. So the substance is there. It's just the execution where this movie falls flat. And minor spoiler, you do see Atlantis near the end of the film, and it looks fantastic. It looks like a wonderful world. And I'm thinking, you're gonna show this to us now? Why couldn't we spend way more time here? This looks way more interesting than Versailles, because Versailles, yes, it does look amazing visually, but that's what Google Images are for. This is your own unique version of Atlantis. I want to spend more time here, but no, we got to get the rushed editing and pacing of the Versailles storyline. So overall, this movie's getting a 1 out of 5 for me. And the best way I can describe it would be this is like a live action Barbie straight to DVD movie with worse pacing. Yeah, it's one of those movies. So you know my thoughts now of The King's Daughter. Let me know yours down in the comment section down below. If you genuinely love this movie, more power to you. I'd love to know your thoughts down below. If you like this video and you want to see more videos just like this, then definitely hit like and subscribe. I really do appreciate the support. And also go follow me on Patreon, just like these wonderful people right here. And thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you again soon. Take care.